About 0419 hours, Caribbean Sea, the Ark Almirante Bayon locked fire control radar onto the USS Harry S. Truman. Captain Rafael Mendoza prepared to fire on the American aircraft carrier. His orders, attack and retreat. What he didn't know, American destroyers had been tracking him for 14 hours. If this story grips you, hit subscribe now. You will not want to miss what happens next. The fatal decision. The fatal decision. 17 hours before Captain Mendoza ordered his crew to fire, Venezuelan naval intelligence delivered a classified briefing to Fleet Command in Caracas. Satellite data showed the USS Harry S. Truman operating with an unusually dispersed escort formation. Her destroyers and cruisers were spread across 180 nautical miles, a formation typically used during routine transit operations, not combat readiness. The Almirante Bayon, equipped with an Italian-made Auto Malera, 127mm gun, capable of firing 40 rounds per minute at targets 13 km away, could, theoretically close within range during the carrier's scheduled helicopter recovery operations. The plan relied on speed and surprise, approach at maximum velocity, fire a full magazine of 12 rounds at the carrier's flight deck where aircraft were most vulnerable, then retreat into Venezuelan territorial waters before American forces could respond. The window existed. What the briefing failed to include was how American E-2D Hawkeye aircraft had been orbiting the region for 72 consecutive hours, tracking every Venezuelan naval movement since Tuesday. The Invisible Net APY-9 radar aboard Overwatch 3, the E-2D Hawkeye circling at 25,000 FT, can track a baseball-sized object at 200 nanometers. The Venezuelan frigate measured 440 FT long. At 13:47 hours, when the Almirante Bayon cleared La Guaira Harbor, the Hawkeye's tactical coordinator, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, marked the contact and assigned it tracking number V271. Within 90 seconds, that data transmitted via Link 16 data link to every American ship within 400 menlos. Captain David Morrison watched the plot develop on his tactical display. The Venezuelan ship was running 22 knots on bearing 0115, a direct intercept course. Standard Venezuelan naval doctrine called for frigates to maintain 40 nautical miles from American carrier groups during peacetime operations. This frigate was closing that distance at maximum sustainable speed. Morrison ordered his weapons officer to assign fire control solutions to the contact. Here's what nobody tells you about modern naval warfare. The battle ends before the enemy knows it's begun. So, what was Mendoza seeing on his own radar that made him think he still had a chance? The illusion of surprise. The illusion of surprise. Aboard the Almirante Bayon, the tactical situation looked completely different. The frigate's SPS-774 search radar, a system designed in 1985, showed the American carrier 18,000 YD to the northeast, with 2 escort vessels visible at extreme range. What the radar couldn't show was the E-2D Hawkeye 150 mi away, or the 2 F-A-18F Super Hornets flying combat air patrol at 35,000 FT, or the submarine USS New Mexico tracking the frigate from below at 400 FT depth. His electronic warfare officer reported intermittent radar emissions from the American ships, standard search patterns, nothing indicating combat alert status. This was the critical misunderstanding. American Aegis destroyers don't need to radiate continuous targeting radar to track contacts. The SPY-1D phased array radar can track over 100 targets simultaneously, while appearing to operate in passive search mode. To Mendoza's equipment, the Gettysburg looked like she was conducting routine ocean surveillance. The difference between 1985 technology and 2025 technology isn't measured in capabilities. It's measured in how invisible superiority becomes. The point of no return of no return. The Auto Malera 127mm gun mount rotated 90 degrees to starboard. Inside the Almirante Bayon's Combat Information Center, the gunnery officer entered firing parameters into the ballistic computer. Range 17,400 YDs, target speed 12 knots, wind correction factor 3 degrees left. The system calculated the firing solution and displayed it on the main screen. 12 rounds, maximum rate of fire, 18 seconds total engagement time. Mendoza's executive officer, Commander Luis Torres, made one final objection. Captain, American doctrine requires them to respond to direct fire with overwhelming force. We should reconsider. The political order from Caracas was explicit. Demonstrate Venezuelan willingness to defend sovereignty against American encroachment, even if it meant accepting losses. At 04:23 hours and 17 seconds, the first 127mm shell left the barrel at 2,900 ft/pers. Aboard the Gettysburg, an automated alert sounded. The Aegis system had detected hostile fire and requested weapons release authorization. Captain Morrison pressed the authorization key, his response time 4.2 seconds. The mathematics of destruction. The mathematics of destruction. A standard missile 2 Block 3B accelerates to Mach 3.5 in 6 seconds. The Venezuelan frigate running at emergency speed was making 28 knots, approximately 32 men p8. Physics doesn't negotiate. The first missile covered the 12-mi distance in 22 seconds. Mendoza's radar operator screamed the warning at 18 seconds. Missile lock inbound. The frigate's antiquated countermeasures fired automatically. Chaff canisters ejected, creating clouds of metallic strips designed to confuse radar guidance systems. Flare launchers deployed infrared decoys. The helmsman threw the ship into a hard starboard turn. The SM-2's terminal guidance system ignored the chaff. It was locked onto the frigate's physical radar return, not electronic signatures. At 04, 24 hours and 11 seconds, the proximity fuse detonated 15 FT from the ship's super rupture. The 358 LB blast fragmentation warhead converted into 18,000 pieces of high-velocity shrapnel, moving at 8,000 FT pers. Of the 12 shells Mendoza fired at the carrier, how many do you think actually reached their target? The cascading failure. The cascading failure. The carrier's close-in weapon systems never even engaged. Flight operations continued without interruption. An E-2C Hawkeye launched from Catapult 3 at 4:25 hours, exactly on schedule. The air boss didn't announce anything unusual over the flight deck speakers. Aboard the burning Almirante Bion, Captain Mendoza regained consciousness in the wrecked bridge. Smoke filled every compartment. The deck tilted 8 degrime to port as flooding consumed the forward sections. Damage control teams fought fires in 3 separate locations. The engineering plant was offline. Emergency diesel generators struggled to maintain power. Mendoza attempted to broadcast a distress call, but the radio mast had been destroyed in the second missile impact. A junior officer activated the emergency satellite beacon. The Venezuelan Navy received the signal at 0431 hours. They dispatched 2 patrol boats and a helicopter for rescue operations. By the time they arrived 90 minutes later, 41 crew members were dead. Another 22 suffered severe burns or shrapnel wounds. The survivors pulled from the water would spend months in hospitals. The ship that Caracas sent to challenge American naval power had become a warning written in twisted metal and blood. The message Caracas refused to hear. Music. The message Caracas refused to hear. At 0448 hours, while rescue helicopters circled the burning frigate, Venezuelan Air Force Command made their second catastrophic decision of the morning. 4 Su-30 Mk2 flanker fighters scrambled from Libertador Air Base carrying 8 KH-31A anti-ship missiles between them. The plan overwhelmed the carrier's defenses with a simultaneous missile salvo from multiple vectors, the fatal assumption that American forces were surprised and reactive rather than prepared and dominant. The E-2D Hawkeye tracked all 4 fighters from the moment their wheels left the runway FA-18F. Super Hornets already in the air adjusted their combat air patrol to intercept positions. At 87 mi from the carrier, the Venezuelan formation activated their targeting radars. The American fighters launched 4 AM-120D missiles from beyond visual range. Engagement time 83 seconds. Result, 4 Venezuelan fighters destroyed before a single anti-ship missile left its rail. American losses, $14 million in expended missiles, 0 casualties, 0 damage. The carrier strike group never altered course, never increased alert status, never even broke radio silence to request additional support. When military planners in Caracas reviewed the after-action reports, they found one conclusion impossible to escape. The conclusion. Caribbean remembers 43 sailors who followed orders into a battle lost before the first shot fired. Modern naval warfare isn't about courage or tactics. It's about technology gaps measured in decades, not years. Venezuela learned what every nation eventually must. You don't challenge a carrier strike group and survive. If this story showed you the reality of naval dominance, like and subscribe so you never miss the next engagement that reshapes military strategy forever.